Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome all newcomers. I'm your host Jidayun and welcome to the 46th episode of Commander, I Hardly Know Her. And today, this video is a bit different. I'm doing another narrated video because the audio cut out on the video. We're back at Roll the Bones. You should go, visit their store. And now that I've got that bit of, admin out of the way, now to go over the decks in turn order. Josh won the dice roll and is on Animar Soul of Elements, a teamer deck that just throws out very big guys and non-guys until the pilot is the only one left standing. Next up is Joey on Atla Palani Nest Tender, a Naya deck that wins by making eggs and selling them to the lowest bidder to flip horrors beyond anyone's comprehension off the top of the deck. Third is myself on Jasmine, Boreal of the Seven, a deck that is comprised of the most iconic vanilla creatures in Magic's history and aims to win by making Jasmine make them unblockable whilst being buffed by various anthems and +1/+1 counters. Last but not least, we have Michael on Krenko Mob Boss. I would explain the idea of the deck, but I imagine you guys can read. Make Goblin, then make more Goblin. Now that I've introduced the decks and the players, let's get into the game. But before that, make sure you like and subscribe to catch future videos, and let me know how you enjoyed this video in the comments after you've finished watching. Alright, turn 1, Josh draws to start us off and plays an Opal Palace as land for turn, taps it for a Soul Ring, and then taps the Soul Ring for a Thought Vessel. Dreadful. Joey draws for turn, plays a Croson Verge tapped, and passes. Jidayun draws before playing an Overgrown Farmland tapped, and then passes. Michael draws, plays a Mountain for turn, taps it for Commander's Plate, and then passes to end turn 1. Turn 2 begins, Josh untaps, draws a card, plays a Myriad Landscape tap before passing, leaving up 4 mana. Joey untaps, draws a card, plays a Needle Verge Pathway, then taps 2 mana for a Boros Signet, and then passes. Jidayun untaps, draws a card, plays a Forest for turn, taps a green and a white for a Watchwolf, a 3/3 with no abilities. Michael untaps, draws and plays a Mountain for turn, and passes to end turn 2. Turn 3 begins, Josh untaps, draws a card, plays a Rejuvenating Springs for turn, taps their Soul Ring to activate the Myriad Landscape to get 2 mountains from the deck onto the battlefield tapped. Joey untaps, draws, then taps 3 mana for a 1000-year elixir, allowing creatures he controls to activate abilities as if they had haste. Jidayun untaps, draws, and plays Isimaru, Hand of Khanda, a 2/2 with no abilities, before attacking Josh for 3, putting them to 37. Michael untaps, draws, plays a Mountain for turn, and taps 3 including a red for a Legion War Boss, passing thereafter to end turn 3. On to turn 4, Josh untaps, draws, and casts their commander, Animar, using Opal Palace to have it enter with a +1/+1 counter as it is the first time it's been cast this game. They pass after doing so. Joey untaps, draws, plays a Selesnya Sanctuary, returning Croson Verge to hand before casting a Scroll Rack and passing. Jidayun untaps, draws, plays a Forest, and casts his commander, Jasmine Boreal of the 7, allowing him to move to combat and attack Josh for 5 unblockable damage, putting them to 32 and passing. Michael untaps, draws, plays a Mountain, and casts his commander, Krenko. He then moves to combat, creating a 1/1 red Goblin creature token with Legion War Boss, before sending both to Joey, dealing 4 damage after placing a counter on the aforementioned token with War Boss's Mentor trigger, and ends turn 4 by passing. We're moving into turn 5, and everyone has something going on. Josh has Animar out with a lot of mana, Joey has a field set up almost perfectly for when Atla hits the board, Jidayun has Jasmine out, meaning life totals are unsafe, and Michael is set to make a bunch of goblins starting next turn. Turn 5 starts, and Josh untaps and draws, then taps 2 green for Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, putting a counter onto Animar, then playing a Hardened Scales before passing. Selvala only costs 2 here, because Animar has a +1/+1 counter, which lowers the generic cost of Selvala to 0. Joey untaps and draws, playing a Spectator Seating, and then tap 4 to play his commander, Atla Palani, and then passes. Jidayun untaps before casting the Adventure Side of Besotted Knight, placing a Royal Roll into Jasmine, giving it +1/+1 and board 1. He then taps Jasmine and 2 more lands to cast Besotted Knight from exile. He then moves to combat and swings 3 at Michael and 2 at Joey, bringing them to 37 and 35 respectively. Michael untaps and draws before tapping to attach the Commander's Plate to Krenko, then tapping him to make 3 1/1 red Goblin tokens, as he controls 3 goblins currently. He then taps 1 to play Brightstone Ritual, adding 6 red mana as he controls 6 goblins, and then uses 3 of that red mana to cast Jeska's Will, adding another 6 as that is the number of cards in Jidayun's hand, bringing his floating mana to 9 red. He then casts Goblin Trashmaster, going down to 5 red in his mana pool, and then spends another 3 to cast Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. Both of these are Lord creatures that buff goblins by 1 power and toughness, each bringing a buff to Michael's board of +2/+2 for goblins. He uses the rest of his mana, plus his last mountain, to cast Shared Animosity, an enchantment that buffs his goblins by 1 power per attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. He finally moves to combat, makes another goblin from the Legion War Boss before declaring all goblins that can as attackers, being the War Boss and the tokens that it has made, at Jidayun. He blocks 1 goblin token with a Besotted Knight, causing a trade, and does not block anything else as he is not able to, taking damage that brings him down to 28 life before Michael passes to close turn 5. Turn 6 starts, and Josh untaps and draws, playing a land and tapping 3 mana for Hadana's Climb, an enchantment that allows them to add a counter to a creature at start of combat, which they immediately go to, which ends up being 2 counters due to Hardened Scales, which gives Animar enough power to flip Hadana's Climb into a land that can give creatures flying. Josh also casts Vexing Shusher, which can make spells uncounterable for the cost of a single mana. Joey untaps, draws, plays a Sacred Foundry, paying 2 life to have it enter untapped. He then taps 2 mana to make an egg token with Atla, and does so again after untapping Atla with 1000-Year Elixir, and then passes. Jidayun untaps, draws, plays a Plains, then plays Ruxa, Patient Professor, a creature that buffs creatures with no abilities by +1/+1, and allows them to assign combat damage as though they were not blocked. On Ruxa's Enter the Battlefield trigger, Jidayun returns Besotted Knight to his hand, as Ruxa allows him to return 1 creature with no abilities to hand on its ETB. He then moves to combat and swings 7 to Michael, who takes 7 and goes down to 30. Michael untaps and draws before tapping 3 mana to play Perforos, God of the Forge, a creature that burns opponents for 2 life each time a creature enters the battlefield. Under his battlefield, more specifically. He then immediately taps Krenko, thereafter to make 8 goblins, dealing 16 damage to everyone, bringing his opponents to 16, 17, and 12 in turn order from him. He then taps Hobgoblin Bandit Lord to deal 8 damage to Josh, as 8 goblins enter the battlefield this turn, bringing Josh to 8. He then moves to combat, causing the War Boss to make another goblin and bring his opponents to 6, 15, and 10. He then swings a bunch of goblins at Jidayun. This kills the Jidayun, bringing him well under 0 life total. Michael then passes, wrapping up turn 6. Turn 7 starts, and we're down a player, and 2 other players are on death's door. Josh untaps and draws before playing a forest and tapping 3 mana for a Sword of Hearth and Home. They use the land flip from Hadana's Climb to give Animar flying and hit Michael for 14 damage in combat before passing. Joey untaps and draws before playing Goblin Bombardment for 2 mana. He then immediately sacrifices both eggs to shoot Michael for 2 damage and trigger Atla twice. The first trigger earns a giant Ataphage from the top of his library. The second fetches a Rock Egg, which is an egg creature that gets immediately sacked to earn a Ruck Egg and a Bird token, which then immediately gets sacked for an Utvara Hellkite and a Dragon token. Joey then makes an egg and immediately sacks to do 1 last damage to Michael to get a Dragon Broodmother from Atla Palani. Her name's hard to say, guys. Give me a break. Joey moves to pass, and in his end step, Josh casts an Overloaded Cyclonic Rift, returning every opposing non-land permanent to hands to avoid Michael winning via tapping Krenko at start of turn. Michael then untaps and draws, playing a land and just commits 2 goblins to the board, including his commander, and passes. Turn 8 starts, and this game looks all over except the crying, as Josh untaps and draws. Josh activates the land that gives a creature flying to go to combat and finish off Michael, equipping the sword to Selvala before doing so, to offer the creature protection from 2/3 of the colors of Joey's deck to dodge potential removal, and plays an Abominable Might to attach to the Vexing Shusher to bring Michael to -4 life, taking him out. Joey untaps and draws before weighing his options and conceding, having nothing to stop Josh from killing him on their turn, which declares Josh and Animar the winner. Turns out the Temur Elemental is just as busted as the day he was printed. That's the game, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more, and do let me know if you like this format of video. I can be sure to make more like this, should the demand exist. Thank you for watching once again, and like and subscribe once again. And tell me how you enjoyed the video. Goodbye, everyone.